I want to turn to the audience for some comments and questions. Let me start with the two. I'm going to take them in a couple of bundles. So two here, Ian Brzezinski, the gentleman, I think that's Tingiz. I'm having trouble seeing. Yep, that is. And then our colleague in the back there. Let's take those three questions as a group.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, my name is Tengiz Praladze. I'm from the Georgian Center for Geopolitical Studies. First of all, let me express my gratitude to the
I'm going to interrupt Tengiz to say, and one of the reasons we're doing this is because he pushed us to do this here in Wroclaw as a way to bring together the aspirants. So thank you for your leadership on that, Tengiz.
Let me welcome this really unique format when we have aspirant countries together. I think this is really important, and the experience of Visegrad Group makes evident and the efficiency and the advantage of such cooperation. And maybe this format is different from the Visegrad Group format, but you have the same goal, and I do believe that value and importance of each aspirant country will significantly increase if it cares not only about his own work but also support others, because the mutual support is the basis and the main idea of NATO. And my question to all speakers is, what do you think, and are you considering the possibility to establish the similar to the Visegrad, even unofficial format of 4 aspirant countries cooperation in order to share experience and support each other to achieve your common goal?
Excellent question, Tingiz. Thank you. Let me go to Ian, and we'll collect a couple of these and then come back to the panel.
I'm Ian Brzezinski from the Atlantic Council, and I want to commend Damon and your colleagues for addressing this issue of enlargement, because it's important to kind of reawaken it in the alliance. We also have to think about promoting enlargement, tying it to the themes that are driving the alliance today and tomorrow. And I'm wondering if there's a link between NATO enlargement, particularly Georgia, and maybe even Macedonia, to energy security. I mean, this June, the Xheladini Consortium is going to make an important decision and choose a pipeline. So the fact is now all of a sudden a pipeline is not going to become a theory, it's going to become an operational reality. Trenches are going to be dug, pipelines are going to be laid, it's going to be clear that gas is going to start flowing. How does that affect, and how can it be leveraged to kind of foster the process of NATO enlargement, particularly vis-a-vis Georgia? And then I'm also wondering if, perhaps if the Trans-Adriatic pipeline gets chosen as the route, does this create a political opportunity to more effectively address the issue of how to get Macedonia into NATO? Does it provide an opportunity for NATO to live up to its commitment? Because this will be a huge win for Greece. It'll be billions of dollars of transit revenue coming in. Greece might be possibly more willing to be flexible on Macedonia when it has a win, rather than having its back pressed up against the wall. I'd be interested in the panelists' reactions to that.
Interesting observation, Ian. And I saw a hand back in up here. Yes, please.
Just general question. My name is Katarzyna Rybka-Iwańska. I'm from Polish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I just wanted to ask you one question, because the discussion is focused mainly on 3 particular cases, Georgia, Macedonia, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. And what kind of results can the NATO enlargement bring to these countries? And I just wanted to tackle this from another angle, which means what kind of results will this enlargement bring for NATO? How much the alliance will change or will transform or will evolve in the years to come? Thank you.
Very good question. All right, with those 3 questions, let me come back and start with you, Mr. Minister. Is there prospects for a V10, Vilnius 10 type, Visegrad type grouping of the aspirants? Is there a link to this onslaught of a southern corridor now? And what's the impact on the alliance, not just your country?
Thank you. It's very good questions, all of them. I mean, we just in last few months, couple of months since started in the forum in Bratislava, we had a meeting in the format, and there was the Minister of Defense of Montenegro, and I think it was a good start, followed by the very important initiative, as usually, by the Polish, Turkish, and the Romanian ministers of foreign affairs. They met in the formal 3+4 in Brussels with the ministers of foreign affairs of the aspirant countries. The Chicago Declaration is very important. It was first time for Georgia mentioned as an aspirant country. We are for the formalization of the group of four, the aspirants. I know that there may be the different approaches, but I think that for Georgia, uniting the efforts on our further path of the integration in NATO will be helpful. On this month, in the beginning of this month, at NATO week, we have also brought the deputy chiefs of missions from Brussels and had this continuation. I think it will continue in future as well. I don't know whether it will be formalized, but we are for this. On the energy security, of course, yes, definitely, and of course it impacts. I remember that in 2008, the Russian Federation was very, very accurate when bombing, not to get the bombing close to the pipelines. The energy security, energy independence, and freeing from dependence of the natural gas will be decisive. And the shale gas news was really a great news for the entire democratic community. I think this is really very much important. And on NATO, how it impacts the NATO, just in few words, it will become more secure. It will become by having more democratic, more stable Georgia and other aspirant countries inside of the alliance than on the borders and the outskirts.
Madam Minister, Mr. Ambassador, let me both get your quick reaction to the, you've got sort of the Adriatic Charter. You've been working together as the Western Balkans. Prospect for the four aspirants working more coherently. Just real quick on that point.
Well, it's very important to work together, and we are working together, although we in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we need to solve this, our internal, this with the registration of the military property, and then we can, liberate some of our energy to think on the more globally. At the moment, really, because it was the question about Visegrad Group country and then some, we are not as a Visegrad Group country, we were trying, but now in the near future, maybe we will gather as a Visegrad Group country. Now it's not complicated, but we don't have time to elaborate this. But Visegrad Group country has enormous, really positive impact on the Western Balkans, especially Bosnia and Herzegovina. We from Bosnia and Herzegovina personally appreciate that very much. We are very, without the Visegrad Group country, all four together, they are I can't say they are the only one, but they are taking care of us in the NATO, in the EU. If it wouldn't be Visegrad Group countries, I don't know who would mention Bosnia and Herzegovina and Western Balkan countries. Energy security is something very interesting.
Let me just pick up the ambassador on that and come back to you on energy. I mean, Macedonia has been an outlier because in some respects you had an invitation. Are you open to this broader regional cooperation, including with Georgia?
Well, we know from the experience that regional cooperation has been one of the best, that has given some of the best positive results. When we started A3, most of the countries, including Croatia, Albania, were not on the radar, although they had the priority as such, NATO integration, but the achievements that have been done through regional cooperation were tremendous.
Okay.
I think formalizing such ideas may be positive in the future.
Back to you, Madam Minister, on the energy piece, please.
In Bosnia and Herzegovina, for example, we have the South Stream will go through the Bosnia and Herzegovina, and in the next month, few days, it's going to officially that to be signed in front of the Bosnia and Herzegovina. South Stream will go into part of Bosnia and Herzegovina, very close to the border of the Croatia, that is also the NATO member. On the other side, also the biggest investment in Bosnia and Herzegovina, it's a Russian investment. The Russian company, they bought the refinery abroad in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Never ever we in Bosnia and Herzegovina didn't have any kind of the complaint for having aspiration to be the NATO member. I think because of the same reason that Minister Petriashvili said, they want their capital also to be the secure. So in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we didn't have any kind of the problem. Why would be good although I'm trying to avoid the word enlargement, why it would be good to NATO for enlarge to the Western Balkan countries is finally to stabilize us, although I think that we are already stabilized, to modernize us, and there are resources to direct in some other parts of the world, and at the same time, from us, what Western Balkan country, what NATO can get, and what is already having through the ISAF mission in Afghanistan, it's very good know-how that we have, the medical doctors, nurses, the demining, peace-building operations that we, from the Western Balkans, especially from Bosnia and Herzegovina, that we are very capable and that we are already contributing. So the NATO will close, let's say, one chapter geographically of the Europe and can direct their forces, minds, thoughts on some other parts of the world.
I can see how you're a good saleswoman in the town hall meetings in Bosnia. Please, Ambassador, anything to add on that?
Well, I think it's a very important question also because it has been playing an important role of leveraging our NATO integration process or EU integration process. There were a couple of projects that Macedonia was included in that. And from my experience, I know that such types of energy projects were a good incentive for the leaderships, for policymakers to make decisions that were positive for EU processes, but also for NATO processes as well. Also, lately, there are alternative issues, ideas, projects that do play a role, and I think TAP is one of the projects that is being discussed as of lately. Whether it can have a positive impact on our NATO integration, it remains to be seen.
Thank you. Let me just see, is there a final question from the audience? I've got one. Let me call in Celeste, and then I'll add one, and we'll come back just to wrap it up and try to keep us back on schedule. We're running intentionally a few minutes.
Celeste Hollander, American University and German Marshall Fund. So this is my Rorschach test on what people think NATO is about and whether NATO enlargement should continue and what it can achieve. Should Russia be a member of NATO?
That's perfect. So Celeste, I'm going to add on to what Celeste just said. Should Russia be a member of NATO? But how do you also think about other potential enlargement? We've talked about how quickly Serbia may develop its conversations, Kosovo. I've just come from Sweden, Finland, where there are new debates there. The Prime Minister of Moldova is at NATO headquarters today. So we're here talking about the 4 formal aspirants. But Celeste's provocative question on Russia, plus others, the unfinished business of Europe, do you see that as a reality?
Yeah.
Would you like to start, Madam Minister, and then we'll come back to
I will
you?
break.
We'll give you the final word as the senior
right.
minister here. Madam Minister.
I do see as a reality this, the world is changing rapidly, and something what in this very micro region, Western Balkan, that's our experience, having the war, having the NATO to stop the war, NATO bombing Serbia. I would always debate about this, was this good or bad? I think it was very bad, but that happened. But at the same time now we see during these negotiations between Belgrade and Pristina agreement, the Belgrade asked security from the NATO.
Right.
So
right.
the things, changing that you
Yep.
cannot imagine so fast and so quickly. So Belgrade asked security. The last meeting that they have to make them to secure about the agreement was with the NATO General Secretary Rasmussen to NATO for guarantee the security for the Serb population on the Kosovo. Right. So I do see Russia one day, and this is all about these transatlantic meetings. I do believe very much in transatlantic, trans-European, United States, Europe, and I do see Russia one day. I don't know how old will I be. The border with moving either EU and the NATO, having the mind Asia, the populations on Asia, China, and everything. So
we're in our final minute, so Mr. Ambassador, just a quick word. Serbia, Russia, is there a future, can you imagine, in NATO?
Well, it's too big a question for me to answer, but from regional perspectives and from all perspectives, I will say this, that the NATO enlargement process have been reinforced a couple of times by the history of the region that has played out. Let's not forget that there has been, couple of wars that have been going on in the region, the idea of democratizing, reforming, and solidarizing the region has been the driving force for NATO enlargement in our region.
Let's end where we began in Georgia.
Okay, if there are the criteria for Georgia, then there should be the criteria for the Russia as well. So when they stop occupying neighboring countries, when they stop electing the Soviet-style Secretary Generals of Communist Party as presidents, when they respect the human rights in the country, then by being the member of NATO alliance, we will discuss and maybe agree on that idea. But not yet. They're not ready, for sure.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Minister. You know, if you all remember when we launched the NATO-Russia Council with much fanfare in Pratica di Mare in Italy, the discussion at the time was the potential to forge an alliance with the alliance. And I think that vision remains valid, but again, it depends on a country that's committed to the shared values and interests of the alliance. And that's gone in the wrong direction, not the right direction when we think about our neighbor to the east, but it's the right vision and aspiration. It just will depend on what happens, I think, in the country. I want to just conclude by saying we wanted to have this conversation about enlargement, not just to help tee up thinking about this ahead of a summit, but we need to figure out where that summit's going to be. I'm hoping that the Visegrad countries will step up, and we might see a summit coming back to this part of Central Europe to help set that agenda. This discussion's been about specific reforms, specific countries, and there are enormous challenges with each of the four aspirants. I mean, there are dysfunctionalities as we talk about with each of the countries as well. It's difficult. But we also have to remember, I think as our Polish colleague reminded, this is more than just about the individual countries. It is about the alliance and the greater purpose. This is part of a European, American, North American strategy of helping to create a Europe whole, free, and at peace, that produces stability, that produces security, that provides the right environment, prosperity, where you actually will no longer be able to imagine conflict in this area. And I think it's, rather than contributing just to the solution in each of these countries, it's how to bring more unity of purpose and coherence and focus to this transatlantic community so that we can work on these global issues we have in our agenda, that you're not on the menu, but you're working with us on the challenges that are on that menu. So with that, please join me in thanking my colleagues on the stage for their frank conversation this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you.